Greetings and welcome back to Tug of Heart. Leroy, Lori, and Crazy Ideas. Before we even get started, got to handle some administrative. I was chatting with Bobby, the orchestrator of all of these wonderful podcasts, the owner of Strong Island Radio, Strong Island Entertainment, and I don't know that it's us, may not be, but you guys need to keep liking and following because Strong Island has gained 189 followers. Now that's huge. I mean, these are people that are dedicated to what he's trying to do, which is put out great information, great products, t-shirts, just good stuff. And you know what? An all-around good guy. It's not just listening to the audio podcasts and talk shows. You can actually pop in. He's got retail merchandise, which is super interesting. You can also go to him for embroidery, silkscreen printing. If you want to print up some glasses as thank yous for clients, just a whole bunch of good stuff. Super excited to hear him say that. I'm not going to say exactly how long it took him, but I'll tell you what, he gained those 190 followers in a very small window of time. Because I'm thinking about our podcast, I don't remember the time, but it was impressive. It is a very, very small. So reach out to him, smash that follow button, and just get to know him. Go down, meet him. Great guy. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about never too late. What does that mean? Well, I promised you something that would be uplifting and something that I'm excited. I'm excited because we do so much healing and so much dissecting of challenges that I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about it's never too late. Never too late for what you ask? Well, it's never too late to say thank you. It's never too late to dream, to apologize, to adventure, to give, to ask for forgiveness, to play, to love, or to start over and to change your perspective. That's kind of what I've been feeling. I feel we've done so much kind of getting into the heart. And I know that we live in a time where a lot of us are struggling. Inflation has kind of got us, beat down a little bit. The pump has got us certainly making some decisions on where we go. We don't have the freedom. We are absolutely, and I'm not here to talk politics, but we are absolutely limited. We're limited on grocery choices. We're limited on the amount of barbecues we can have. We're limited on where we can travel. All of these things are financial, but we do have limitations. And so that's tough, but it's never too late to change our perspective. It's never too late to discover a park around the corner. It's never too late to kind of meet your neighbors at the mailbox and just chat. So I want to talk about that today because I'm changing many things, sometimes too much, I think, because it almost gives me a little bit of anxiety, but I'm changing a lot of things. I've discovered my fascination with parks, public parks, because they're just, I go to one 5 days a week and it's beautiful. It's almost like going to an amusement park. So I have to change my perspective because I can't go as many places as I want to go. So I have to find more things that are close and change my perspective. Lori, I missed you.
Hi, my twin.
Hey, how are you?
I think I'm gonna start calling you two for twin two.
Okay. I call my wife 5.
Yep, that would make me number one.
Ooh.
It's a good perspective, right?
I better change my perspective. Correct. Lori, I'm so excited about what's in our power. There's a lot of things that are not within our power, but there are certain things that are within our power.
Exactly.
That can lift us up and kind of brighten our days.
And I think the key that I was hearing there as you were opening is what matters is what's in our power, and what is in our power is enough for it's what we need to
Mhm.
get through and to get through well, as far as I'm concerned anyways. There's a quote that says your perspective will either become your passport or your prison.
Okay.
I had written down like a few different quotes because I really didn't know where we would head with this, but I really like that because that tells you exactly where you're limited. You had said like there's a lot of things right now that we're limited in. The important thing when it comes to the heart is that you don't want to let outside limitations infringe on your inside work, the stuff that is the inside job and your responsibility, really. You don't want to have a fixed disposition, a limited perspective. And what happens, the way that this comes into play, something happens beyond our control. Two choices, simple. You accept it, the way things are and as they are, or you accept responsibility to change them. And that takes a little bit of looking at it and a little bit of perspective. So I guess from there, what we would want to do is kind of frame, how does this happen? Because we're not talking about a disingenuine type of perspective. What is the one that people say where people are like, where you're just like falsely over enthusiastic about things, or you just have the appearance of a healthy perspective? We're talking about the heart. So we're talking about having a true inner good and buildable perspective to better manage what's happening on the outside of us and to interact better with the world and to gain better meaning for down the road.
Okay. I
So
like that. That's, I mean, that's a lot, man. There's a lot in that little that little bit you're saying. I mean, there's a lot there about contentment. There's a lot
yeah.
about um, I like it. Keep going with it because I want to share what I was thinking after. But I mean, I love what you're saying. Like, don't stop. Just keep going.
Okay, well, for me to continue going, I'm actually going to just volley it back to you really quick here. What I'm talking about can begin with a healthy mental landscape, the way that you just see things. But the reality is, we want to see things as they are. We don't want to, we spoke about disillusionment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even that, the perspective can be, you think disillusioned and you have this image of just your heart sinking because something just isn't what you thought. But a quick shift in perspective is to say, I'm better footed for everything that will happen from this moment on because I have a better view of the way things actually are. So now I'm operating in a better understanding of things. So that's a quick perspective change. And it matters because things, in my belief, are working towards good. And so the right perspective is to kind of understand that, but also to understand that there is a lot of discomfort on the journey to get there. And further, that there's decent reasons for the discomfort. But to stretch, I wanted to go back to a time when you had spoke about taking that pause. And I can't remember specifically what you said, but I would like you, if you can, to frame it for us in this context where when we're in the throes of life or just of emotion, of overwhelm, of limits, what magic could happen in that pause that could actually make true what you're saying? It's not too late within just a pause, what potential do we hold to change our perspective? Do you remember when you had spoke about a pause before?
I do.
Can you tell us again about it?
Before I tell you about that, I'm going to say, wow, what a great volley.
That was I said a lot before I volleyed. Yeah. I bumped, set, fixed it.
Great volley.
Yeah.
Lori, I think when I say pause, or when I said pause, it's really taking in its entirety, our currency.
Right.
Because we get consumed, and sometimes we get so consumed that we lose track of why we were set in motion on that particular effort, instead of what is our real yield from that experience. That's probably why I like camping as much as I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I go camping, the currency changes. There was a time, I think I've said the story before, when I was, with the track car. But it became so, for me, it became cost prohibitive. The reward wasn't nearly, a good exchange for what I spent to get there. So I had to, within my power, I still want to do things. I mean, I like to adventure. I like to try new stuff. I like to develop new skills, whether it's, starting fires, or, appropriate regulated fires, or driving. But I had to change my currency. So when you say pause, I had to stop and think about, like, am I really getting out of this what is appropriate for what it costs? Now, not just what it costs in terms of cash, what it costs in terms of time, what it costs in terms of just mental commitment, what it costs financially. I mean, all of these things. So that pause is to kind of recalibrate my currency and make sure that the yield on my effort is appropriate.
Wow. I like that a lot. Um, I'm right. I'm just scribbling down a couple notes real quick. But one of the things I hear in that I consider you a man of faith.
Huge.
In religiously speaking, but also you have a decent amount of faith in humanity and the human condition and just life in the natural world also. And I really liked what you said about taking that pause to have a look at your currency and recalibrate it, because one of the things I think we can change our perspective anywhere along the way is to remember that we are people of faith. We spoke one time about our car will start. That's faith. Everybody has faith in something. So it's good to remember what we have faith in, because when we are looking at our currency, we have to also remember to mark when things turn out well, or when things turn out better than we thought, or we just made it too. And we have to remember, make a little mark, a little mental note, a little place in your heart to tuck that away and deposit that currency, because when things do get a little heavier, we can survive on that interest because we know we've done this before. I will be okay. And that's part of, I think, when using the analogy of camping, part of what you're relying on is what you have faith in that you can also do without, which we're going to be headed into talking more about that next time. But it's having a good grasp on that, right? That gives you the comfort to adjust.
This is a difficult time for a lot of people, and I think it's never too late to develop skills. It's never too late to uh, learn gratitude. It's never too late to be patient. And the reason I say this is because we are in just a very, very weird time. We're in a weird time where we turn on the news to kind of, for as much as we can stomach, and we hear things like food shortage.
Right.
We turn on the news and we hear things like cyber warfare. We turn on the news and we hear things of a jeopardized power grid. We turn on news and we talk about fuel supplies. We turn on the news, we talk about inflation. And it's never too late to put a tent in the backyard. It's never too late to, these are my things. These are not universal, but if something were to happen, and they may, and they may not, but I'll be like, man, I was made for this,
Right.
because I've learned to appreciate. And again, this is not, I'm not the rule, I'm not the guide. I'm just saying, for me, sitting in a chair, tending a fire, I mean, I'm like, that's my currency.
Right.
Cooking in a cast iron skillet over an open fire, again, that's my currency. But for everybody's individual existence, it's just never too late. It's never too late
So
to adjust things. Go ahead, Lauren.
I just want to interrupt and shake up your little pretty image for a moment, if I can.
Yeah. Okay. I like this.
So what if you're just caught out of your element and in a situation where you have not had this repeated success and affirmation of being okay with the situation that you're used to and comfortable with? So
stop there.
Okay.
I have been. Away
from everything, and you're just pushed into a really uncomfortable, even painful situation. And
I have been.
That's not a resource available. How would you adjust then?
You make do.
Specific. I got to have a specific.
Okay. I set up a hammock, and because I have back issues, I have to have a hammock that sleeps rather flat. And I set it up, and out of nowhere comes a torrential downpour. And I'm like, oh man, I had a rain fly up. A rain fly is the cover over the hammock. And but the problem is that I didn't know that, in my neophyte status, I didn't know that you had to put these little tether lines to let the rain that came down, the straps at each end, the rain would wash down and right into your hammock. I didn't know you had to put these little drip lines on either end. And so I was sitting in water, and I'm just sitting there in a puddle of water, and it's not letting up. It's just relentless. And I literally had to say, okay, I didn't get it right this time. And I sat in my truck, and it was like the most uncomfortable. I'm sitting in a single cab pickup truck, and it was the most uncomfortable night ever. But you know what? I was still on an adventure. The fact that I was there was greater than not being there. The fact that I was experiencing new things, and the fact that I was learning. I wouldn't know how to do anything if I hadn't failed at it.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great answer.
So the currency wasn't a good night's sleep. The currency was the education. So this is like, it's never too late. It's never too late. I'm in the middle of a trip. It's my second night camping. First night went off without a hitch. It's my second night. It's miserable, but it's never too late to change your objective. My objective initially was like, oh, I want to go out. I want to have a good night sleeping in the open air. I want to talk to my buddies, cook a little bit, but it's never too late to change that.
Yeah, you have to have that enough resilience to literally weather life, or survive the different changes of weather. I was picturing when you were saying that the difference between it rains and this is very uncomfortable and annoying. You and I were caught in some terrible seasons when it's camping. Remember in North Carolina?
Yes.
We left. That's another story. But I was thinking it's a difference between like, oh my gosh, it's raining, and then saying, hallelujah, it's raining, and just putting your face up and being in the moment and enjoying it until you get in and your underwear is wet for that fifth hour, sixth hour, and things change. But then you change that to experiential and learning, like you said. The other thing is being able to do that versus almost allowing inaccurate superstitions to form. Because when you were talking about the rain, I couldn't help but picture Linus from Peanuts. This guy goes everywhere he goes, there's that little cloud following him, right? So you could be the person who's in the hammock and you're like, of course it's raining, of course, and go from that very easily to rage, because things would turn out like this, because it just, and now you're defining your being, your existence, and the universe on probably something that doesn't really stand in line with the whole of your life and experience. But you're counting it like, of course, this is another time. And that's a bad line of thinking and superstition.
It's perspective, but it's never too late to change your perspective.
Right.
So sooner or later, I mean, nothing, very seldom do things just go great, just
Right.
start to finish. So it cost me a night of sleep, but in that night, had I never been exposed to it, all I was doing was keeping that night of discomfort at bay. Having gone through the night of discomfort, I ensured many nights of comfort in learning how to better, I'm not talking about more money. I'm not talking about hotel rooms. I'm just talking about different ways to string up a hammock. I'm not talking
Right.
about anything else, just that. So it cost me a night, but it guaranteed many other nights. So it's kind of, it's never too late, Lori. It's never too late to change your perspective.
Right. And what if
I came for relaxation and I left with something even greater, which is education.
oh, I like that. You know what? That's a very good takeaway also, to just think a very good perspective to have is a little bit of comfort is a small trade for a lesson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's something that's just by acknowledging that and being aware of it can change a lot. I actually really like that.
Here's the reality, Lori. You can buy the education, but until you implement the education, there's still that, you still have to, there's nothing, we talked last time about on the job training. There is
Right.
nothing. You can go and you can take all these classes at REI and you can come up with all these different things. And the reality is you still have to implement it.
Right. So now
You
let's,
read all the parenting books, still got to raise a child.
it's never quite the same, is it?
Nope.
They can tell you how tired you're going to be, but until you're in it, it's hard to actualize it in that way. Let's bring it back to the things you started talking about, the here and now, the news, food shortages, and things that can enter our life, and they just are going to reside with us for a bit. It's not an REI trip will not rectify certain things. So if some of our fears, which everybody has experienced, start coming into being, and we're given a clear indication and will remain for some time, we still have a responsibility to each other to act in accord with our dignity, right? And to still do our best, and to still, as difficult as it may seem, keep our wits in a healthy perspective. So take us there now. if you so just like to imagine if you're like, no, really, this is your sleeping condition, it's not going to get better, and you're going to have to get used to this for the next 6 months, and it's probably going to get colder. Okay.
Conditioning.
Right. But even like for because you see people, you see a person that's displaced, right? Homeless, some very happy, jovial even, and some upset. Now, not taking into account uh any mental conditions or anything, but when our life changes in a way that really, really feels like a letdown, a failure, just a massive disappointment, what is to be said about perspective in that moment? That's got some teeth to it. That's not a pep talk to get through a day, but for a little bit of a longer haul. Because you've seen those times too. And what would you say from the heart? What would you say is the best you can do during those times?
A word that's going on a lot right now is pivot.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pivot because sometimes there is no amount of energy, there is no amount of anguish, there is no amount of disappointment, there is no amount of self abuse that can change things. So that it's never too late to pivot. And let's focus on something that's within our grasp, because this is lofty. This is beyond my current ability to satisfy. So let's pivot, because you know what? I always worry when we have these conversations that sometimes we're just talking about healing and understanding, and we're just, we're constantly trying to reconcile, matters of the heart. And I'm like, let's just pivot. Let's talk about things that are really good. Like right now, I feel, I don't want to say absolutely euphoric, but I feel something very positive coming from It's Never Too Late. It's never too late to say, hey, you know what? Not right now. Okay.
So just say,
Not
I'm
right.
by choice, I'm still good. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely, when you that's
Why
what I
not?
mean by
Right?
pivoting to the things that you can appreciate. What's always really good if you really focus on it? This is about changing currency. Doesn't matter how bad things are. You got a glass of water, the way that hits you, the way it
Mm-hmm.
goes down inside, if you really focus on how that kind of hits you at the back of the neck and just goes down, and there's this rejuvenating quality about that. And I don't want to get like too crazy. It's the same way peeling an orange.
Right. Right.
You peel it and you bring out this fruit and it's juicy. And if you did a good job and you rolled it on the table for a little bit with some pressure, it's juicy and it's just right.
So it's heightening your senses to what is right, and
You know,
turning and
360,
pivoting towards noticing what still is uh, going well and right.
360-degree awareness, because no matter how bad you think it is, it's not as bad as somebody else thinks it is.
Yeah, I remember Mom used to say, the man who complained he had no shoes until he ran into the man who had no feet.
Yeah, I saw something like that along, like, man, I wish I had a plane. And then somebody else saying, like, man, I wish I had a car. Man,
Yeah.
I wish I had a bike. Man, I wish I had legs.
Yeah, and for me, I think too, when things feel difficult, we also have to have a healthy understanding that there are learning times and shaping times in life. And a lot of discomfort we may perceive, we have to be able to kind of toggle out what discomfort is from the situation itself and what discomfort is from our inflexibility in it and our resentment of the situation. Because a lot of times when you fall into acceptance, my goodness, you find that like half or better. For me, it's well beyond half of the suffering disappears when I stop resisting. Not to say it's fully gone, but you were speaking about euphoric. Letting go is blessed and euphoric. Don't you think so?
It is. You know what's funny about what you're saying, Lori, is that um, when we leave school, 12th grade, we graduate. Now it's like we get choices. And kids are like, most people, there are a select few that just absolutely, they know what they're going to do and that's what they're doing. There is no varying. But for a lot of people, they're like, I have no idea what I want to do. I literally have no idea. And then, you know what everybody tells them? Well, why don't you just take a few classes? Let's get your 100 series classes out of the way, your
Mm-hmm.
101s. Let's get all these out of the way. Let's find out what you don't like. So they go to school to find out what they don't like, but yet in life we hold ourselves to a different level because it's like
Oh,
we,
yeah.
we, we expect to just get it, but we don't. It's like, well, why don't you try something and be like, whoa, you know what? Don't really like eating habaneros. Not my thing, you know? The habanero, no bueno. Don't like it this morning, don't like it yesterday. But yet we expect something different in the implementation of education. Yeah, in school it's quite tolerable. We understand, we're more understanding, but we're always going to be students. We're students of life, but we're never going to stop learning or getting an education. I don't care how old we are, we're always learning something. And yet it's so tolerated at a college level, but not tolerated on a personal level.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that so
I
much.
do what I can. Let's go and wrap this up. No, I'm just kidding.
Um, so one other thing that had entered my mind this, I guess, day, because we just thought of this kind of in the 11th hour. One of the things that I think a lot about perspective is the questions that we ask in life, number one. And number two is the way that we ask questions. So what always comes to mind, and we'll take this as literature, it is from the Bible and also the 5 books of the Jewish text and Islam, therefore. But you look at Sarah, right? When she is what age and told she's going to have a baby, right? And she's like, I'm an old woman. And so she says, how can this be? In a very cynical, like spitting, laughing, dark way, she asks this question. How can this be? Then you fast forward to just the Christian books, and they include the story of Mary, which is prophesied about back there also. But the short thing is, she says the exact same word. When she is told she will be pregnant, a virgin should be equally as hard as a 90-year-old woman becoming pregnant. And she says, how can this be? But she says it with a sense of wonder and curiosity. And this is not to make any religious point, except to I just want to frame, because this has always impacted me greatly. When we don't understand what is happening, we can react to confusion, sometimes as far as violence or aggression, at least, because it's so counter to what the way that we see things. And we can just be like, how can this be? Why? I did everything right. Why? Or there can be this sense of learning that you had spoke about, which is, how can this be? I need to learn more. And that a lot of times when we remove some cynicism and that kind of energy from just taking a look at what's happening to us and before us and inside of us, it's enough to shift the heart from judging life, our own life and the life of others, to learning about life. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of hitting my point, but it's something that's critical to me in my own life. That's why I add it.
I don't really like getting into biblical discussions, but I'm going to tell you that we are commanded to exercise discernment. And I think that Sarah was at 90. Like, how can this be? What toll is it going to take on me? And I think Mary, generously her junior, said like, interesting. I mean, so you got to be careful, because
But you can
I'm
also
not advising anybody to go buy a Harley and like head
no,
out on a cross
but there's
country
a lot
trip.
to be said about that. Somebody 90, and so let's take it to Taoism to include them, right? They talk about the sage, the reed, the sagi. I call Leroy the sagi because he's my sage, but he's a generic sage for me in my
For
life.
sure.
I love you, brother. But anyways, you talk about just the sage, and when it's old, it's brittle. What's brittle breaks. It doesn't bend, it breaks. And Mary comes in younger, which symbolizes kind of something green and flexible.
Correct.
And so,
Yes.
but so in our heart, we do want to keep that resilience and flexibility regardless of our age. So I think it's good that you said that, because that is that weighs tremendously on our ability to perceive things in a healthy way, right? What do you think?
It does. I mean, I think that's a great comparison. A mighty oak that's 150 years old is it's at a point where it is fragile. Whereas a fledgling oak tree, man, it can weather the storms. It can weather.
It can kiss the ground, the top can kiss
Yeah,
the ground,
literally.
and it will spring back up. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to be said about that.
But the heart is
Lori,
outside time, so we do that.
yeah, we are out of time. I just want to say thank you for entertaining this thought I had. It's never too late. I mean, it's never too late. Maybe
I
next
thought we
week.
only introduced it. We're going to have to revisit this at some
Gonna
point.
it definitely, the time went way too fast.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's never too late.
All
Lori,
right.
I'm sorry. I don't even know
I
what I did, but I'm gonna just throw you an extra. I'm sorry.
I I don't know if I should also waste a forgive you in case I need it for a whopper later, but I accept your apology. How's that? Okay, until next time, seriously, please like and share the podcast. You guys, I mean, we fumble through these things. You're always welcome to join us, to clean up our thoughts for us, to say them better than us, because then we can be like, yeah, that's what we meant. We were building to that tremendous points, because a lot of times people have clearer thoughts about what we're talking about. So like and share. We're on Strong Island. And until next time, farewell.
Adios.